Open meeting for Thursday, December 19th, 2024. I will now ask the Commission Secretary for information on today's agenda.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the minutes of the open meeting of Thursday, December 12th, 2024, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of the open meeting of Thursday, December 12th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the agenda, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the notices associated with agenda items 2 through 10. The draft final decision and docket 5 UR 111 associated with agenda item 11. The draft final decision and docket 6690 UR 128 associated with agenda item 12. The proposed final decision and docket 9300 PLI 128 associated with agenda item 13, or the suggested minute associated with agenda item 14, approving the order adopting proposed rules and associated legislative report, directing the Commission Secretary to sign the order on behalf of the Commission, and directing Commission staff to make the necessary filings to finalize the rule process.
I move we approve the notices of investigation associated with agenda items 2 through 9.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move we approve the notice of proceeding associated with agenda item 10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. In docket 5 UR 111, I move we approve the final decision.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. In docket 6690 UR 128, I move we approve the final decision.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. In docket 9300 PLI 128, I move we approve the proposed final decision.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. In docket 1AC 258, I move we approve the order adopting proposed rules and associated legislative report consistent with the Commission Secretary's description.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That brings us to our discussion items for the day, and the first one we will start with is item 15, docket 5 DEC 2025, the Digital Equity Capacity Program. Before we do discuss our decision points here, I'm just going to provide a bit of background on this program since it's a new one. So the Digital Equity Capacity Program is one of 3 programs supported by NTIA, or the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. And funding for the program is provided through state digital equity capacity programs to support the implementation of state digital equity plans. Wisconsin's Digital Equity Plan was developed with the intent to ensure all Wisconsinites have equitable access to affordable broadband service and the capacity to fully engage in a digital society. The Wisconsin Digital Equity Capacity Program, or the Wisconsin DEC program, will focus on implementing 3 of 5 Wisconsin Digital Equity Plan values: adoption, trust, and sustainability. Very briefly, adoption means ensuring all residents can connect to the internet with the appropriate accessible internet-enabled devices, skills, information, and services specific to their needs in real time. Trust means providing readily accessible resources and support to build trust with communities and ensure that all feel safe when accessing the internet. And sustainability entails supporting intentional activities and investments for ongoing device access, digital skills education, and affordable broadband subscriptions. Wisconsin has been awarded a first round of Digital Equity Capacity Program funding totaling $13,248,029, which can be allocated among 5 categories: maintaining plans, implementing plans, making subgrants, evaluation, and administrative costs. Under the making subgrants category, Wisconsin's budget includes $9.5 million to support projects designed to provide different forms of support to meet the digital equity needs of covered populations under 2 tracks: Digital Navigators and Digital Equity Coalitions. Activities under the Digital Navigators track support digital inclusion, digital skilling, and on-demand technical support. And activities under the Digital Equity Coalitions track support raising awareness, identifying community needs, increasing the network of people, programs, and services, and sharing resources that serve and increase digital opportunity. Projects carried out under both tracks will be required to focus on the Wisconsin Digital Equity Plan's values of adoption, sustainability, and trust. To establish the scope of the initial round of the Wisconsin Digital Equity Grant Program and ensure we meet these goals and achieve objectives, today the Commission is being asked to make determinations on the following program design elements: eligible applicants, program budgets, including whether to establish specific budget allocations by track, and maximum grant awards. In reviewing the decisions before us, I'm focused on making this as accessible and straightforward as possible for applicants and to our team in implementing the program. The memo clearly lays out a path forward, and I'm hoping that this is a relatively smooth one. And I did borrow very heavily from the memo in terms of talking points and discussion items. So thank you for the great memo, staff. Our first decision item pertains to applicant eligibility. As noted in the memo, states have some flexibility related to the types of eligible entities that may receive funding through a subgrant. Additionally, NTIA strongly encourages states to take deliberate steps to ensure that subgrant opportunities are accessible to a diverse range of entities, particularly those owned, led, and/or managed by members of the covered populations. In the initial grant round, I think it makes the most sense to cast a wide net and adopt all of the entities listed in NTIA guidance as eligible to apply for both tracks of the grant program. Permitting this broad eligibility may allow for the largest number of qualified applications to be submitted, and could allow the program to capitalize on existing relationships and capacities within covered populations to create more diverse digital coalitions. I also didn't see any reason for establishing a list of priority application types in this initial grant round. So for this decision, I met alternative 1, allow all entity types eligible under NTIA's guidance to apply for this grant round. Commissioner Nieto?
Thanks, Chair Strand. I'm at Alt 1 here as well, and for generally similar reasons, casting a little bit of a wide net and keeping things flexible as this is the inaugural round. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Hawkins?
And I am at Alt 1 as well.
Awesome, thank you, guys. Our second decision here is about program budget. The commission can consider how to establish the total budget for the grant program and whether to establish specific budget allocations between the two program tracks. Here I am supportive of allocating the full $9.5 million available under the initial award, which would put me at alternative 1. I think that allocating all the available funding for a single grant round maximizes opportunities for applicants and will facilitate our ability to gather information on program demand that could then be used to consider and inform any potential refinements or modifications to make to this program in future grant rounds. So again, I'm at alternative 1 to establish a budget of $9.5 million for the initial grant round here. Commissioner Nieto?
I was at Alt 1 as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Same place for me.
Thank you. Our next decision item is allocation by track as it relates to the program budget. So in addition to establishing the total program budget, which we just did, we could also consider establishing specific budget allocations between the two program tracks. Here, in order to maximize flexibility for applicants and to propose projects for the commission to consider, and consistent with prior decisions that we've just discussed today, I'm at alternative 1, which would be to not establish specific budget allocations by track.
Alt 1?
Thank you.
Alt 1 for me as well.
Thank you. Our final decision today is asking us to consider whether or not to set a maximum grant award amount for this initial grant round. In some other commission programs, maximum grant requests have been adopted to support the allocation of awards to numerous applicants and to provide upfront information to applicants to help inform the development of their proposed projects and related funding requests. In the context of this program, setting a maximum grant award is appropriate because it signals our desire to ensure funding is available to a variety of applicants and to encourage funding from a range of proposals that may serve different covered populations in areas of the state. Therefore, I was at alternative 1 here, which would be to establish a maximum grant award amount of 10% of the program funding because it's a reasonable way to accomplish the stated goals and to proactively provide funding expectations to potential applicants. Commissioner Nieto?
Alt 1?
Thank you.
Alt 1 for me as well.
Okay, great. That wraps up the 4 discussion items we had on that program, so I believe we are ready for a motion.
All right, in docket 5 DEC 2025, I move we approve scoping for the Digital Equity Capacity Program consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Our next agenda item is number 16, docket 9714 FG 2024, which is the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program. And Commissioner Nieto is going to lead our discussion here.
Thanks, Chair Strand. So in docket 9714 FG 2024, we're considering the scope of further rounds of the Rural Energy Startup Program, or RESP for short, administered by the Office of Energy Innovation. So this is really our second look at this. We've done an initial scoping on this program, and we're really just refining our scope here today based on feedback we've received and lessons learned. So I'll keep the background very high level, bring those who are listening generally up to speed, but I think the memo does a good job of bringing us up to speed. And really overall, I would be proposing here to maintain a scope very similar to the scope we already established in our initial round. We did receive a comment that made a really good point, so I have a slight modification in reaction to that piece of feedback we got, which I appreciated, and that's about it. So in general, in November 2023, we approved the plan to establish the REST program, and we made our initial decisions about the scope of this program. And we tailored the program along a couple of themes, and one is being responsive to the charges from DOE to deliver benefits to as many underserved local communities as possible. And an emphasis emerged for us on rural units of government and disadvantaged communities within rural government units. And that resulted in the targeted program design that we established here for these energy projects. Today, we have an opportunity to establish a grant round going forward for over $1,032,000 for rural communities in Wisconsin. And in general, we have the same decisions that we had in our initial scoping discussion. So our first decision point is on eligible applicant types. And again, when we initially scoped this program, we targeted the program to rural areas and prioritized projects that served rural areas defined as disadvantaged communities under the Justice 40 definitions. This worked successfully for us, and we received good feedback. So here I'm at alternative 1, maintaining the rural area definition and retaining the disadvantaged community priority. Chair Strand?
Thank you. I am at alternative 1 on this one as well.
Thanks.
Alt 1 for me, too.
Thank you. All right. And second, we have eligible activity types and maximum allowable requests. We initially approved 3 activities, and these were based on DOE-designed blueprints. So they had a foundation in essentially outreach materials and pre-designed templates that DOE has available for grantees to make it really easy to plug into this program. So I do support the continuation of using those blueprinted activities. These are grants for small rural communities without a lot of resources, and the use of those blueprints has been very helpful and made this an easy program to work with. The one change I would make is the one that I mentioned in response to that comment that we received. So here I am at Alt 2. I support the increase of the maximum grant request for $125,000 for implementation projects in Activity 3. But basically what I would do is I would take that Table 1 and the values under Table 1, and I would offer that for 2 or more applicant communities in a consortium together, double the amount of each of those activities is available. So if it's $75,000 under 1 and 2, it would be $150,000 for 2 or more applicants, and then the same under Activity 3, doubling that amount to $250,000 for 2 or more applicants would be the proposal here. Chair Strand?
Thank you. I can absolutely join you there, and I appreciate your creative integration of the public comment. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think this is just another good example of our public comment process working in a great way. So yes, alternative 2 with your modification. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Hawkins?
And I can join you there as well, and appreciate you doing math in an open meeting.
Wonderful, thank you. Multiplying by 2. Yeah. Yes. And then our third issue is the program budget. Just a note here that we do have an update in the amount of available funds. I already mentioned it's $1,032,572 to date. I think similar to our previous discussion here, we would want to maintain the goal to make all of the funding available for award. So I'd support alternative 2 and establish a revised program budget at that amount that we have available.
I'll do. Thank you.
Great.
And I'm in the same place.
Great, thank you. Are we ready for a motion?
I believe so. Yep.
All right, in docket 9714 FG 2024, I move we approve the scope for the Rural Energy Startup Program consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Commissioner Nieto. Moving on to our final item up for discussion today. It's number 17, docket 6680, AF 108. This is the application of Wisconsin Power and Light, or WP&L, requesting approval to record a contribution in aid of construction, or kayak, investment in A&R Pipeline Company's Heartland Expansion Project into account 182.3 other regulatory assets. Additionally, WP&L requests approval to accrue carrying costs at the applicant's approved economic cost of capital until the projected costs of the project are included in the applicant's net investment rate base. First, I'm just going to give a little bit of background on this request, and then I will discuss my positions on the two decision items included here, and then turn it over to my colleagues for their positions. So the total estimated kayak investment in Heartland is approximately $73.1 million, excluding carrying costs, and approximately $81.3 million with carrying costs included if they're authorized. Through the Heartland Expansion Project, A&R would undertake new pipeline additions and replacements to existing pipelines on their system located in Wisconsin and Illinois. And in turn, WP&L proposes to participate in the project by paying for the WP&L specific portion of the project with a combination of kayak payments and A&R transportation rates in order to secure firm gas supply for its Neenah and Sheboygan Falls generating stations. WP&L noted in its application that recent and anticipated changes in MISO requirements have increased their need to secure firm supply for generation capacity and energy resources, which WP&L says is necessary to realize the accreditation potential of recent upgrades made to their Neenah and Sheboygan facilities, as well as to mitigate lost capacity from WP&L's partial sale of West Riverside. This additional firm supply will strengthen WP&L's ability to meet the current demands of Neenah and Sheboygan and to respond to the anticipated increased usage going forward. Although WP&L evaluated alternative solutions, including securing capacity from other interstate pipelines and on-site storage options, it determined the A&R Heartland Expansion Project would be the most favorable solution for providing firm gas supply. To minimize customer costs associated with this pipeline expansion, the applicant has requested to record its contributions for the project as kayak. Because WP&L has a lower equity ratio and a lower authorized return on equity than A&R, it is less costly for WP&L to finance the kayak than it is for A&R to charge WP&L the annual cost of WP&L's portion of the project. WP&L has calculated that this kayak proposal would save its customers approximately $13 million on a net present value basis when compared to project funding methods other than kayak. In general, I am supportive of efforts to control costs and provide savings to customers. This is a bit of a unique request due to some of the underlying facts, including that the project is not a WP&L-owned asset in the traditional sense. Rather, it is an A&R asset owned and operated by the pipeline company. Because this is an A&R interstate project, A&R needs FERC approval to begin construction, which it has not yet received. And in fact, A&R has not even filed an application with FERC yet. The record indicates that A&R will not file with FERC until it has funding commitments from participating utilities. The uniqueness of this request and the sequence of events did compel me to undertake a comprehensive review. And if approving this kayak investment, I do think it's important for us to ensure that appropriate guardrails are in place to maintain the WP&L customer benefit and project transparency. For example, in reviewing data request responses, the applicant did provide information that project cost overruns will not impact the kayak payment schedule because its agreement with A&R includes provisions for capital cost overrun and underrun recovery. Furthermore, should the project not receive FERC approval, A&R is required to refund WP&L's kayak payments with accrued interest. Although these contract provisions give me confidence that customers will not be harmed from this investment, I do believe it's also important to include some reporting requirements to ensure there is sufficient transparency into the project, especially since the project is not something this commission has direct authority over. In prior related dockets regarding requests to participate in an open season, the commission has conditioned its authorization on the inclusion of quarterly reporting requirements that were modeled off conditions the commission has approved in prior construction authorization requests. While these other dockets don't provide an exact apples-to-apples comparison of what we have before us, I do think adding similar conditions here could help with the aforementioned protections that I'm seeking. These specific conditions are that beginning with the quarter ending at the end of the first full quarter after this final decision is served, and within 30 days of the end of each quarter thereafter, and continuing until the project is fully operational, the applicant shall submit quarterly progress reports to the commission that include all of the following: the status of the FERC approval process, the date that construction commences, summaries of the status of construction, the anticipated in-service date, and the overall percent of physical completion, actual project costs to date, once each year, a revised total cost estimate for the project, and the date that the facilities are placed in service. I would be comfortable supporting the applicant's request to record kayak investments in the A&R Heartland expansion project into account 182.3 other regulatory assets until the projected costs of the project are included in the applicant's net investment rate base, with these conditions included, which puts me at alternative 2. In addition to the requested approval of the kayak investment, WP&L's application also seeks authorization to accrue carrying costs at its economic cost of capital. Because the project is not yet reflected in rate base, because it's not yet in service, WP&L contends that it's appropriate to include carrying costs at its economic cost of capital because WP&L will have to finance its kayak payments with debt and equity. While I understand WP&L's position on this request, this is a somewhat unusual situation given its uniqueness. We're being asked to authorize carrying costs on a contribution to a conceptual asset that's not yet approved for construction nor placed in service, that will not be owned or operated by the utility. There's not much in the record regarding the reasonableness of authorizing carrying costs here. In fact, I saw several things in the record that could demonstrate why carrying costs are not appropriate, including the lack of risk. Based on the agreement with A&R, it appears that WP&L has no risk in this project, and instead the risk seems to fall more on customers. The lack of ownership. This project is not and will not be a WP&L-owned asset. It is not an asset of the utility making the carrying cost request. And timing, the fact that a project application has not yet been filed and that the project is not even underway. Some other concerns I have with authorizing carrying costs here are the lack of precedent. So in past similar decisions, we don't really have a guide here. There's no clear precedent for allowing carrying costs in a project like this. Authorizing them here could arguably create a new policy, and I'm not very confident that this would be appropriate to do in a docket with a relatively limited record and no intervener participation. And I also am concerned with what message this authorization could send in terms of whether it could be used as a basis for earning a return on non-utility assets going forward. So in light of these reasons, I'm not supportive of authorizing carrying costs at this time, which would put me alternative 4. And I'm interested to hear from my colleagues for their positions on both of these decision items, because again, this was a unique one for us. Commissioner Nieto?
Thanks, Chair Strand. Those were very helpful opening remarks, and it was good to hear you walk through your thinking on this. I think my thinking on this was very similar. And I flagged and looked into a lot of the issues that you're raising here. I would be in a very similar spot to where you're at. So alternative 2, approving the request as conditioned or modified. I will join you on the condition that you, the reporting condition that you described. And then I would add, and I think this is a standard condition we'd probably add anyways, but that the authorization is for accounting purposes only and doesn't bind the commission to any specific treatment in a future proceeding, which is standard on these. And then looking into carrying costs, I could either go one of 2 ways. I think, and a lot of this has to do with exactly what you're pinpointing, which is risk in general. So either a lower carrying cost amount or not approving carrying costs on this shorter time window, basically from now until the applicant's rate case, right? When the asset would become a part of rate base and would earn a return at that point. Or alternatively, having some sort of a condition here, or if more appropriate at the rate case point, basically saying that in no event shall there be recovery that essentially makes the total cost to customers higher than that $13 million savings delta. So like the applicant said, cost overruns won't impact the payment schedule, but they do, through that recovery mechanism, impact the dollar amount that customers would ultimately pay. And then there's a kind of a 50-50 sharing mechanism. So I think cost overruns would have to get really high for customers to be on the hook for more than that delta. But if that were the case, then that would make this not beneficial to customers overall. So those, I could go either way, essentially joining with you with your alternative or putting in that cap. And I think they both accomplish the same objective. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Hawkins?
I'm in a similar place. I think through the additional data requests, I got comfortable with why this request was being made and understand generally with the additional information that was provided in the record that, there was a potential for customer benefits here. And I'm fine with your conditions and reporting requirements. I'm thinking about adding one where the main driver of this investment is to ensure the capacity rating of these facilities in the future, in the winter in particular. And so as we go forward over the next 4 or 5 years as this project is being built, I would like to see the current capacity accreditation value of this facility reported, and so we can kind of track throughout time if the reason for this investment plays out as anticipated. And so not quarterly, but I think on an annual basis, similar to getting the project costs reported, I think the current capacity values of these two facilities would be a useful bit of information. And that's partly just given the novel nature of this request. And so just having that additional information, I think, would be a useful touch point. And then, so I'm fine with alternative 2 for the first decision item. On the carrying costs, the chair's points were very clear, and I think I agree with a lot of what I heard there, that having the agreement in place shows that there is limited risk to the applicant, and so the lack of ownership, all of that. So I think I'm at the same place there for Alt 4 for the decision point, and agree with all of your points there.
Commissioner Hawkins, could I just have one clarification in terms of the reporting requirements on the capacity value? Obviously, the plants will go on. Do you want to set a time period for how long you want those annual reports on the capacity value for the facilities in this docket? 5 years or some period of time? Otherwise, it would just continue.
I mean, I think at least until a year or two after the project is live, because then we should apparently be seeing the benefit of increased accreditation. And so this firm gas requirement is kind of a trend industry-wide. And so I think, well, it's not a requirement, just to be clear. That was clear in the record. But kind of having the ability to see what we're asking customers to pay for. So 2 years post, construction, I think. And we get that data in other places as well, but just to have a clear place where we can look at that trend is sort of.
So 2 years following the in-service date?
Yeah.
Annually?
Annually.
Annually from the in-service date for 2 years.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And leading up to it as well, because they have accreditation values today pre-project. Yep.
Helpful benchmark comparison. Yep. Okay. Okay. Thank you both. I'm very supportive of Commissioner Nieto's additional condition to decision item 1, as well as Commissioner Hawkins' additional condition to that one as well. So I can definitely join both of you with those extra conditions included. So we'd be at alternative 2 with the conditions that I listed. Commissioner Nieto's condition kind of standard for projects like this, and then Commissioner Hawkins' addition regarding reporting on capacity and accreditation. In terms of carrying costs specifically, I am comfortable remaining at alternative 4, and I don't think that precludes the applicant from coming back and seeking this again at a more appropriate time, which is kind of similar to what Commissioner Nieto is offering as well. So I'm going to stay at alternative 4 on the carrying cost decision today. If anyone else would like to weigh in on that further, we're happy to entertain that.
I wouldn't. I would join you both on the list of the 3 conditions that we've each named, and join you both on alternative 4.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hawkins.
Were you fine with Commissioner Nieto's accounting order condition as
Yes.
well?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And you're good at staying there too, staying at 4? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Sorry, yes. Okay, great. Okay, sorry, thank you, yes. Okay, that does conclude our decision items for this. So if everyone has what they need, then we're ready for a motion.
In docket 6680 AF 108, I move we approve the applicant's request consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so that actually does conclude our official business for today. Our next open meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, January 7th, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we stand adjourned until Tuesday, January 7, 2025 at 10:30 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned. Happy holidays.